Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest JFrog webinar. My name is Paul Garden. I have the privilege of working in the security team here at JFrog. And I'm joined today by a colleague of mine, Asaf Balkan, who's the Director of Product Management in the security team. We're going to be talking to you today about JFrog Curation, which we recently announced. And JFrog Curation enables you to seamlessly curate software packages entering your organization. Okay, so topics for today's session are, fundamentally, what is the problem that we're solving? Why are we doing this? Why is it happening? For those of you wondering, what does curation actually mean? It's important to set that at the beginning. And then what's the scale of the problem? I'm sure many of you are very familiar with open source packages and the potential threats that they can bring into your organization, but we're going to look at the scale that this problem really does have. We're going to talk about how JFrog Curation can actually power your foundation for your DevSecOps process or your software development lifecycle. We'll cover some of the capabilities of JFrog Curation. And then I will hand over to Asaf, who will do you a live demo so you can see JFrog Curation in action. And then we'll follow up that at the end for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you can put that into the Q&A section, I think there's a Q&A window somewhere. Find that and put your question in, and then we'll get to those questions at the end. Okay. So what is the problem we're solving? And I think this is very nicely summed up by a quote from a CTO or a CISO from a Fortune 100 company. And he says, and I quote, "I don't have any visibility control over whatever's going on with the third-party open source libraries coming inside my company. And I am faced with two bad options. Number one, let the development team continue doing what they want. Or number two, place restrictions and slow the company velocity." As I'm sure many of you are aware, companies are driving to get new versions of software out as quickly as possible, upgraded versions, bug fixes, new features, all those kinds of things. That drives developers to use a lot of open source. It's much quicker and much simpler for developers to include open source libraries to make software development quicker. Why reinvent the wheel if someone's already done it? So they rely heavily on open source packages, dependencies, and libraries. So this problem is pretty big because sometimes a typical application can be as much as 80 or 90% open source libraries and open source components. That's huge. That's a lot. So while on one hand, that's excellent for time to market, and it makes for coding to be much quicker, it does present a potential risk to the organization because unless you're looking at these very carefully and what you're bringing into the organization, you can be bringing in unintended exposures, which can be in multiple different kinds of forms. So on one hand, you want to keep development fast. You want to have control and visibility, but you don't want to slow things down. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So what does curation mean? So I thought I would pull up the English Oxford Dictionary. What is curation? It's a noun. The action or process of selecting, organizing, and looking after the items in a collection or exhibition. So essentially, the way that maps to the JFrog world is how you select these packages is via the policies that we have, and we'll talk about those later. We organize the packages coming in using Artifactory. That's your artifact and your binary lifecycle manager. And then the repository is where you actually keep the packages. So that's how curation directly maps to the JFrog world. So in essence, we do exactly what the meaning of curation does for your open source packages in your software development lifecycle. Okay. So the scale of the problem, I've already mentioned that up to 90% of a typical application might be open source packages, dependencies, and then their dependencies as well. So when you take a look, and we did some research earlier in the year, and this is just 1 month of data. So we looked at 5 of the most popular public open source repositories that are used by millions of developers every day. And just in 1 month, you've got tens of thousands of new packages being added to these repositories every day. So there are new packages coming. And then when you look at the number of new versions, there's hundreds of thousands of new versions. And how on earth can each developer keep track of, well, is this version safe? Is this version not safe? This is new. Should I be using it? Should I not be using it? I need it because it's got a library that I need to get my application done. So it's very difficult to expect a developer or even a security team to be able to do all of this analysis and figure out whether the open source package is fine to use or whether there's a problem with it, or whether am I bringing a potential exposure into my organization. So the idea of JFrog Curation is to take this headache away from developers and have them focusing on what they care about, which is just writing code. Okay, so today, kind of the problem is the developer is sitting away, they're very busy, and they're just pulling packages from different repositories, whether it's Maven, Python, Go, or NuGet. And then, unfortunately, they're completely unaware that they're bringing in packages that may have security or integrity problems. So they're bringing potential risks into the software supply chain. And these can be, a multitude of different kinds of things, but we're focused around, it could be malicious packages. You don't really want to be bringing those in, especially not into your production environment. There could be high severity CVEs or critical severity CVEs, which is going to cause you a headache and remediation later in the software development lifecycle. There's something that we term operational risk, which would be packages that are maybe very old and they're unmaintained and they pose a potential risk or an operational risk, or maybe they're very young or immature, or just a traditional, a license compliance issue. So maybe you don't want LGPL licenses in the organization, or you don't want unknown license types. So all of this can be happening unbeknownst to the developer. They're just looking to get coding. They want to speed up the software development lifecycle. So this kind of is the problem that we're looking to solve, stopping these unintended risks coming into the organization, not even letting them come into the organization. So the questions that we want to ask, and this is the questions that the functionality of curation do, is the package malicious? We've got an amazing security team here at JFrog. We've got an unprecedented malicious package database that we check against. So the first thing you can do is eliminate malicious packages. That's huge. The second, like I said, would be the license compliance. Legal teams have your guidelines. They say, we don't want any of these kinds of packages or those kinds of packages. So you can eliminate packages of a certain type of license, so they don't even get into your production code. Then, very familiar with everybody will be vulnerabilities. You can elect to keep out things that have got maybe critical or very high severity CVEs. So you don't even bring those into the organization. You can find a newer version of that package that's maybe not vulnerable. So that's another thing that we can look for. And finally, like I just mentioned, is kind of more the maintenance issues with a package. Maybe it's brand new, it's not been tried, so you can keep those ones out. Or maybe it's very old and you want to avoid something that hasn't been maintained for a very long time. So those are the questions that you can ask with curation, and that's what it does, and it sits in the background and does that for you. But let's get into how we do that. So we want to power your foundation of your DevSecOps process or your software development lifecycle. So essentially what we're doing with curation is blocking security risks from entering your organization. So these packages are not even coming into your organization. So we don't actually download the package and do the scan. We actually look at the metadata for the package that the developer is looking to use, and we compare that against the policies. So we don't even pull the package into your organization unless it meets the policy requirements that you've already set up. So we're policing the packages before they get into your organization. So that's what we feel sets you up with a powerful foundation for your software development process. So now, when your developers are coding and they're pulling things from the Maven repository and the NPM repository, they know that all these packages are trusted. So they can just get on with their coding. They don't have to worry about fixing CVEs, or is it a malicious package? Is it the right license type? So this can accelerate the software development process, which everybody wants to do. No one wants to be hanging around waiting for remediation to be done and fixes to be done, or sorting out this is the wrong kind of license type for our environment. So this sets you up with a great foundation for expedient coding. And then consequently, when you get into the build phase and release, there's going to be less remediation. Maybe you don't have to tie up your security team so much. And the DevOps team will like this, or your release management team. It's going to enable there to be a much faster delivery, and it will make for a much smoother and quicker process. Rather than doing things later in the software development lifecycle, you're doing them right at the beginning before they even get into your organization, which saves on time and it saves on money. It's much more expensive to fix something if you're in the build or the release stage, if you can do it before you've even started coding. You eliminate those risks very, very early on in your software development lifecycle. So let's look at some of the features of JFrog Curation. So we have a set of policy templates that you can pick from and configure. And like I've said already, we cover malicious packages, operational risk, critical vulnerabilities, and license compliance. So they're pre-configured in the UI, and Asaf, when he does the demonstration, will be able to talk you through how, and you'll see exactly how to set those up. It's very easy. It's got a very simple to use user interface. Now, something that we allow inside your policies is called a package waiver. Now, what that means is, if, for example, there's a reason why a development team might want a high or a critical vulnerability package to come through because maybe the new version isn't available, but they know they're not going to take this module or this small development to production. But if they don't get that package, it's going to hold back the development. So you can set up policy waivers. So there are exception scenarios you can set up inside a policy to say, hey, block all these kinds of packages except this one, and you can put the package name. And Asaf will also show you how we can do that. Now, the one thing that a lot of people want today, and a lot of customers have been asking us for this solution for nearly 2 years. So we've listened very carefully to what these developers, what the management want, what developers want, what DevOps people want, what the security teams want. And one of the things is to have a complete audit trail of everything that comes into the organization. So rather than things just appearing and then just going into a repository, there's like a funnel where everything comes through curation, and you can see everything that was approved or it was blocked. So this is great for compliance. So if you're in a highly regulated environment or industry, this is great because it gives you an audit trail of everything that's come in and been accepted or come in and been blocked. So this gives you complete traceability. And coupled with the rest of the JFrog platform, you get the traceability from curation all the way through your software development lifecycle out to production. So when there is an exception or a blocked package, you can set up email notifications, and you can have specific team members notified. Maybe there's someone on the compliance team for a license one. Maybe there's someone in the security team or the AppSec team for critical vulnerabilities and malicious packages. So you can set that up. So when you do get a package that's been blocked, everyone gets notified, and you'll see why it failed this specific policy. So everyone will understand what's happened. Thinking more about building for the developer and having a seamless and frictionless experience for developers. We have support for curation in our CLI tool. That's our command line tool. So you can do things like an npm install and it all works through the command line interface. I believe that Asaf will show you how that works in the demo. And if you're using the JFrog platform, you've got seamless integration with curation. It's almost transparent. It sits in the background with its automated policies, looking for packages that don't meet these policy requirements. And it's completely seamless. So the developer doesn't even know it's happening in the background. Whenever he's fetching or pulling different libraries or packages or components, the comparison of the metadata of that package against the policy happens in fractions of a second. So it happens so quickly that if it's approved, Artifactory just goes out and pulls the package into the environment. Now, we have an amazing catalog. It's a database service that sits in the background. And this is where the magic happens, where all the metadata is stored for all of those packages. So we keep track of all of the new packages, the new versions. So it's an active database that's always updated to keep track of all those changes. So your policies will always be matching the latest packages coming into the organization. So it's available now. We announced the product 2 weeks ago, and it's available as, whichever topology you want. Self-hosted, we've got multiple cloud vendors that we support. You can also have multi-cloud or a hybrid topology. So it's very flexible to work within your DevOps ecosystem and your tech stack that you have. Okay, so having kind of covered all of that, once you do have curation in place and it sits between Artifactory and the outside world and these upstream public repositories, what does it bring you? So it's going to give you that centralized visibility and control of all of those packages coming in with the audit trail, with the automation of the policies. It all happens in the background. And then your developers will always know that they've got a trusted source of software components for their development. So it's frictionless in that it happens in the background. The developer, whether you're using the CLI tool or you're in the user interface, pulling packages in or setting things up, it proactively blocks the malicious and unwanted packages in the background. You don't even know it's happening. And all in all of this brings an improved DevSecOps experience, and it realizes cost savings. It saves time for the developers not fixing things while they're doing their coding. It also means that you limit some of the remediation that happens later on in the software development lifecycle. So it's kind of a frictionless operation that happens in the background to streamline keeping some of these, potential risks and exposures out of your organization at the earliest possible stage. Okay, so how does this fit with the rest of the software supply chain that JFrog has? So you'll see on the left, curation takes care of managing and monitoring the public upstream repositories on the left-hand side. And then you come into the main Artifactory, the build, the release, the distribute phases of your software development lifecycle. So we do have other security products, JFrog X-Ray, which is our SCA tool, and our advanced security package, which takes care of secrets detection and services exposures and things like that. So here's a reason why you would want curation and X-Ray is maybe on day one, when a package comes in through curation, it's not a known, it doesn't have a known CVE, but on day 3 or day 4, so think about, when Log4j was released, on the Thursday, no one knew, and then on the Friday, suddenly everyone was in a panic. So this is where X-Ray can pick up through software composition analysis, anything that maybe on day 1 was okay, and on day 5 it's not. So they work kind of hand in hand. You've got curation being the security guard on the gate at the front, and then X-Ray is being the security guy throughout your software development process out to production. So that's in a nutshell how it all fits together in the platform. And now I'm going to hand over to Asaf because it's time for the demo so you can see this all in action. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Hey, so hi everybody, great to be here. Paul, can you hear me? Everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So let me share my screen. Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Can you see my screen? Yes, okay, excellent. Okay, so let's start with a kind of a walkthrough, an experience from a developer perspective and then a curation admin perspective, what curation is. And we will start with the most important person probably, which is the developer. So now, as a developer, I want to install an NPM project. In that case, what I'll do is I will try to build only one package in that case called course.js and try to install it and doing an npm install, and it was installed. Everything is okay. Like I'm being able to install it and it looks great. And the one problem is that npm.js is a malicious package, but still as a developer, I don't know that. So now when we deploy curation at the gate of the company, let me just show you how it works from an architecture perspective. So in general, I am as a developer, I am interacting with a machine, and this is the name of the machine. And in front of that machine, now there is a reference that I will show you in a second how simple it is to set it up. But in general, it's just a URL from this Artifactory saying, don't go directly to npm.js to bring the packages. Rather, I want you to go through another Artifactory, which has a curation protection on top of that. And this is the second machine. It's with 407 at the end. So as a developer, what I did right now is just I went directly through curation and then to npm.js, and everything works okay, which means it's not the behavior we want to have. Going to the curation web application, I have a place I can put policies. This is where I will put blocking policies in front of the company. And in here, I want to add one called the block malicious packages for all the organization. And then I will put it on top of all the repositories I'm protecting in the company. And then I have out-of-the-box conditions. This is where I have block malicious packages, or CVSS, or license aspect, or maybe immature packages that are immature, that are in the operational side of the house. And we will do the malicious packages block. And I don't want to waive anyone at this point. And I want this to be a blocking decision. And then I'm saving that. That's pretty much it from a curation admin perspective. Now going back to the developer, now the developer would like to do this again. In order to do this, we will just need to clean up the cache. So we will not use the things that have been already downloaded. I will remove the node modules as well. Okay, so I think that we are good to go. We will also remove the one additional file, which is the package. Okay, now we are good to go, and we will try to install again. And now what we are seeing is a 403 forbidden. This is because we have been blocked. So the package was not downloaded. As a curation admin, if I go right now to the audit, and this is the central audit of the company, I will see that there was a block indeed of a course.js package. I see which developer asked for it and from which exact server. In that case, it was the internal server and from specific repository. And then I can even have a look on the recommendation coming from JFrog Research saying, you need to remove this package. It's a malicious package. And so that's kind of the behavior we wish to have, right? And as a developer, from an experience perspective, That's kind of a simple task because this is just one package, but I want to show you something that is a bit more realistic. And what I want to do right now is I want to build something that is a bit more complex. And this is something, a package called VMP that has a lot of transitive dependencies as well. And so if I will do an npm install in here, try to do that and go through curation, I am failing all over again. But as a developer, I want to understand exactly what is going on, right? Because this is not actionable, it's not informative enough. So we've built something called the JFrog Curation audit, adding this to our developer. If a JFrog Curation audit, I will get an assessment of what exactly is going on. And let me do this in a bit bigger screen. So what you see in front of you is that as a developer right now, I know that I was blocked trying to get this package, but I see that there are two policies that blocked me. One is because this has a CVSS score of 9 and above, with or without a fix. And what I can see is that there are multiple CVEs for this package that cause me to be blocked. And there is a recommendation coming from the system saying what are the different package version I can use in order to fix some of the CVEs. By the way, I can also see that there is some that cannot be fixed. Okay, and there is another policy that this package violates, which is this package is aged, but there is a newer version, and the version is 3.9.19. So what I want to do right now as a developer, let me.
I think we may have lost you a little bit, Asaf, at least I have. We lost your audio. I don't know
The
what
audio.
we lost your audio, yes, for maybe a minute.
Now it's back. Now it's back again.
Back.
It's okay. Okay, so I'm trying to fix the package that I'm using based on the recommendation. And so let me just do that. And okay, now I will try to reinstall and see if really from a developer everything works okay. Trying to install the package again, doing npm install, and I'm failing. So I'm running the npm. I'm running the JFrog Curation audit once more, and what I see, just a second, let me just make sure that removing the package, the cache and all of that, just a second. Okay, so now I see that I still have one additional issue. I have a CV, I have the package being blocked because of the CVSS. In that case, there are two CVs that cannot be resolved. There is no version that fixed it. Just to make sure that we are correct, I will go to the VM, to the Git to see this in npm.js, and I see that this version in the version that I did is truly is the latest. And if I open the GitHub of that, what I'll see is I'll go to the security side, and then I see that there are two critical severities that are above 9. Let me open one of them. As an example, this is one of them. And I do see that there is no workaround, as you can see from here. So those are truly, it's a package that cannot be resolved using an upgrade. So Curation was correct in that regard. By the way, if I will go in here and I will look for the VM2, I will see that there is, as you can see, there are two CVEs. I see the same exact information as the developer, and there is no fix. So most likely in that case, the developer will ask the curation admin to give it a waiver because they need to complete the project. So assume the curation admin see that there is no solution to the problem, they will go to the specific policy and go to waiver and says, okay, I need to waive the specific version. So you go to here and says, okay, let me go to VM2 and I want to waive all the versions because I know that there is no upgrade exists for that. So I will say no upgrade and then save it, save the policy. And that's pretty much it. And now as a developer, I'm getting a notification that everything should work. And so I'm trying to install it once more and everything works. I'm getting the packages and everything works completely 100% for me. And I can also, if I want to, I can run the JFrog command line just to see that there are no blocks and it says that there are 0 blocks. So as a developer, I'm good to go. One additional thing to make the developer experience perfect is we are also could notify the developer with the things that have been wrong. So in that case, we are setting the system to send emails. In that case, this is the version that we tried to download earlier. And the developer is getting an email with everything that you saw in the command line, all the CVEs and the recommendation of all the fixes that should be used and all of that. And everything could be used just by looking at the email. But the command line might be a better solution for developer. It might be a bit more friendly in that regard, but that's available as well. So going back to curation, just mention is that out of the box, once it's installed, I have a central visibility across the company, across all the JPTs going through curation about downloads, about blocks, about who asked for that. I can slice and dice this by the project, by the internal remotes. I can do all of that. And setting this up, let me just show you how easy it is. So I'm going, in that case, I'm going into the internal Artifactory server. And in here, I have one remote that is used to go directly to npm.js. The only change I did is just refer this to the internal, to the external server with curation, just giving it the URL. And that's pretty much it. And marking that I want the developer context to be sent to curation. So that's another toggle that we added using our technology. That's pretty much it, done. Like once we do that, the developer is not even aware because we didn't change anything to the developer. The developer used to work with a certain Artifactory. They keep on using the same exact one. Only in that case, the same Artifactory will go through another one with curation. And so that's pretty much what curation is. The central gate, the central visibility with the ability to trace everything that happened based on blocking or the project or anything we want to know, adding policies. One additional thing we introduced is the ability to run policies in a dry run mode. Rather, we don't want to block, but we want to test this for a while. And if we are doing this in a dry run, we can go to a dedicated visibility and looking on packages that violate a specific policy, although it was not blocked, but still there is a vulnerability, there is a violation. So we can look at it from here as well. And this could be used to train the system to get, this is something we did in JFrog, to be more confident on the level of noise and attention we will need to give the security guys and the developers. So we train the system, we put it in dry run for a while, do the analysis, and then moved it from a dry run to a blocking mode. So that's something that could also be used for that purpose. And I think that this is pretty much it. One additional thing we can see in curation settings is we can see all the repositories that are being protected. In this demo system, it's only one. And what we can see is all the policies applied to it. So we can see the level of security each of the repositories are getting. So that's a very nice way of knowing how protected each of the remotes. Additional thing we can see, by the way, from another angle, if we will go to a policy, so we can say, okay, can you please show me this specific policy? What are the remotes that are being protected by that? And in that case, we can also see for each specific policy, the level of protection, the level of coverage in the company. So that's another angle we have. And so that's pretty much it, guys. I think that I covered mostly what we are doing. One additional note to say is there have been some questions in here about the connection and relation between X-ray to curation. So one of the things that is important for us to know is that X-ray needs to be in the development lifecycle. It needs to protect the builds. It needs to protect the promotion when we are staging into production. This is where we need to do the SA. Also, we can do this on the code level, but it is very important to cover things during the life cycle as well, because not all of the things could be handled in the gate. Some of them will need to be waived. Some of the packages we will allow today through the gate going into the different life cycle. We will still, those might need to be protected because they might change their security grade. For example, they might become malicious after a while because we will identify those as such. Or most likely reason would be is that we will find a new CV applied to them. And then they are already being used in the life cycle to provide a service or whatever it is. X-ray will be the service to look into that and be able to maybe block the promotion or block the download across the different life cycles. So those two products are completely complementary. The JFrog Advanced Security will allow you to see applicability of specific CVEs across the life cycle. So if something is still in the life cycle, we need the first party code for the context. This is where we can tell you if the CV is applicable to a certain service, yes or no. So curation is at the left. This is where it's the first line of defense. This is where we shift everything as possible to the left to reduce the level of CVs across the life cycle, but you still need to protect those across. Definitely first party code protection that is needed on the SCA side.
Thank you for that, Asaf. And I just had a quick look in the Q&A session, and we've got lots of questions. It looks like you answered 6 of them. So thanks for doing that. That was while I was presenting. But there's a few more. Should we walk through these and see if we can get them answered?
Sure.
Daniel asks, can I manage policies or waivers in a product by product basis, meaning different products that pull dependencies and may have different criteria like licenses that may apply?
So the answer is currently in this version, still not. We are working on extending the waiver management module to do exactly that. And the reason we can do that is because when Curation is getting a request for a download, we get the context of everything. We get the context of the user, the context of the repository is coming from, the virtual, the JFrog project, and we can use those. We can use this context in order to provide waiver based on the origin of the requester, and that might reflect. This is what we see with customers we're working with. That's exactly the way to manage this in scale and to be able to manage the waivers with context of application or project or business units. So this is something we are working on adding, and it will be available rather shortly.
Okay. Next question again from Daniel. How does this handle issues that arise after a package enters the organization, like a package that was okay when first used, but now a high CVE item has been discovered in it? So I can answer that. That's where you would have JFrog X-ray, and I think I touched on that a little bit earlier. This is where you'd have X-ray, which is your software composition analysis solution. So if something on day one comes through the curation gate and into the organization, but it's then deemed to be a high CVE item, as long as you have that policy set up in X-ray, your software composition analysis solution, X-Ray would pick that up and it would flag that as a high severity package that you guys would need to address. Okay.
Yeah, and I will also add to that, Paul, thanks for that, is that we are working on use cases when X-Ray and Curation, since this is one platform, will be aware of each other, and then X-Ray will be able to say, okay, this is something that was meant to be blocked at the gate. I see that, and I see a package that is in the life cycle with this violation, or that violates a specific policy from the gate. I might want to do something across the life cycle, like, for example, failing the build. So those cross user stories and end-to-end lifecycle user stories between X-Ray and Curation, you should expect to see those more and more as we are moving forward and progressing with the development of the platform.
That's great. Next questions from Mitesh. Are there any reporting / notification if a policy rejects any package to download? So yes, there's the audit trail will show you if a package has been rejected and it doesn't download. And also there will be an email like Asaf showed earlier. So the email can be set up to go to just the developer, or you can have it go to specific people. It could be DevOps, it could be your AppSec team or SecOps. So yes, if something does get rejected, there's an audit trail in the UI, and there's also there's a notification that goes out to the team as well.
Yeah, and there is one additional thing in the level of the policy as well. We can add notifications specifically for a specific policy to a certain emails as well. So that's available as well already. And we are working on adding integration to external notification system in case of such events, systems like Slack and Teams and others using webhooks. All of that is work in progress for us to make all the notification much more flexible. So those things should be expected as well.
Okay.
One additional thing is working on reports. That will be manual reports to PDF. We got those. This is a requirement from a few already, so it will be added later on. Currently, it's not available in this version.
Okay. Next question from Brian is PyPy as well as Conda supported? So I know PyPy will be, but I'm not sure the answer on Conda.
So PyPy is supported already in this version. It is available. Conda, it's in the roadmap, and it will be.
Okay. Next question from Jordan. Are there any plans to support Anaconda? I'm assuming curation occurs as part of or on top of package repository mirroring.
So we are not working on mirroring, rather we are working on specific public repos with the source included as part of our evaluation. We could look on mirroring. This is something that we're looking on to be able to add those, so depends on which one, but Anaconda is definitely part of the plans for us to add.
Okay. Someone anonymous says, what is the difference regarding license compliance versus X-Ray? Well, the difference really is you're doing the license compliance and curation right at the entrance of your organization and your software development lifecycle, whereas X-Ray is looking across builds, repositories, release bundles, all the way through the rest of your software development lifecycle. So you can have curation and X-Ray looking for the same kind of license compliance policies. They're just doing it at slightly different places in the SDLC.
Correct. And one of the things that we have learned from being in this business for a while, I will add, is that license is a great example when you want to prevent something from coming in, because the recommendation when we will see a license that is not approved, if we will see this in the life cycle, or if we will see this even before, the recommendation will be to replace it. There is no way to remediate or to fix it. The only fix available is to replace and use an alternative. And this is a very good incentive for us to do this much earlier than detecting this at the life cycle, just because if a developer time already spent on developing something with package with a license that is not allowed, and we will catch it hours, maybe days, in some cases even weeks of work, this work will be wasted, and a lot of frustration will come into place, and a waste of time and business velocity. So shifting left in license case is a very clear incentive. The same goes to many other cases when we don't have a newer version and we need to replace. Anytime we need to replace, prevention is so much better than detection, velocity and cost-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question, I think when the time that this was asked was before you did your demo, so I think this question may have been answered. It says, what is the user experience for block packages, 404 errors, etc.? And I think you kind of covered that. And he's also asking when a developer is attempting to get an emergency patch built out. And I think you kind of covered that with the policy exception, that you can have a waiver, so you can have an exception for something that you need to get development done on time. So I'm going to keep going through these quickly because we've got a ton of questions. This is Matthew. What is the licensing model? We have Enterprise Plus and we are investing in advanced security. Yes, you can absolutely buy this with Enterprise Plus. It's an add-on fee. You can see the details of that on the pricing page on the JFrog website, or alternatively have a conversation with your account manager at JFrog, and they can give you all of the details about how the licensing model works. Next one is from Kevin. How are packages determined to be malicious? I'm worried about false positives.
Excellent. So first of all, let me share with you something that is critical. I don't think that I've mentioned this in here. I mentioned this in the answers, but one of the questions being asked a lot is, why didn't we implement this using X-ray, everything, including blocking, malicious, and all of that? And the main reason was developer experience. And what we saw is that if we need to download the package in order to assess that, from a developer experience, when a developer might want to assess hundreds of transitive packages in a matter of seconds, it could not be done using technologies that are blocking the developer and needs to download and then store and then scan. For a developer experience, it will most likely, the default will be you are failing, even if everything is okay, and you will just be notified this afterwards. And so this is why when we came and implemented Curation, we built this based on a technology that doesn't need to download the file in order to know if the file is okay or not. The way that it's being done is we have an infrastructure built in JFrog across the globe that scan all those packages in advance, all those open source packages. And when we scan those, we are running a dedicated malicious package scanners that have been built by our research group. We have a research group that I encourage you, everyone, to go and look on the blog, on the website, what kind of a research group we have in here. This is like top-notch leading group of researchers that have been building these malicious package scanners. And the way that we do that, or the things that they are looking into the open source packages in order to conclude if those are malicious or not, those are based on what they are familiar with as malicious behavior. For example, connecting to a CNC, trying to communicate, trying to send using a covert channel to send something outside of the company, trying to invoke other processes, anything that even obfuscation is an indication of an open source to potentially be malicious. And so being a lot of the researchers being hackers in their background knows exactly what is it they need to look inside those packages. And this is what we do continuously. And once there is a package being notified by the research as malicious, potentially by the scanners, it will be identified and the identity will be attached to the package information that Curation will get continuously, and it will be updated continuously, and we will know this, and then the blocking could happen in a matter of milliseconds based on the property of malicious coming from our infrastructure. So that's kind of a end-to-end story with the malicious and the developer experience that we guarantee in here.
Yeah, Asaf and I have the privilege of working with a world-class security research team, so we have the benefit of them curating our malicious package database and enhancing our CVE database with amazing information. Okay, next question. We've still got a lot to get through, Asaf. We've got to keep the answers kind of short. Can you configure custom policies, or are you limited to using the predefined ones?
So currently it's only predefined. We are opening right now some of them for parameters. So for example, blocking a specific package defined by the customer, blocking a specific CVE, blocking specific list of licenses. All of that will be available shortly as part of customizable condition. And we are getting requests to add condition. Those will be added into the library. We want to make sure that those are correct research lab and that those are correct to be done in the SCA. And then we can ensure not only performance, but also readability and recommendation and all of that in a consistent framework. Moving forward, we do consider opening this more to completely customized condition. Right now, it's not available, but it is in the roadmap.
Great. Is there a plugin API to allow augmenting policy decisions with data from additional data sources external to JFrog?
So this is definitely something we are working on the design of that. So it will be available later on. So you should expect this. It's not available today, but this is definitely something we're working on the design of that.
Okay. Next question from Matthew: is the curation blocking message customizable?
No, at the moment it's not. We have such a requirement already in place. So this is something that we have in Jira, not available right now.
Okay. Someone from Anonymous: what are the privileges needed to configure curation, add policies, and view results? So I'm guessing that's a platform privilege. Is there a admin or?
It's not an admin. It is a policy manager permission in the platform that needs to be given. And then you can change the curation policy.
Okay. Are there plans to integrate with package manager clients to expose the curation context to the developer so they don't need to interface with JFrog whenever they see a 403?
Yes, definitely. So we have plans on doing two things. First of all, integrate this capability into the IDE. But the second is to be able to augment not through the out-of-the-box package managers as is, rather using JFrog to build the package. And once you build this using the JFrog command line, you will get the same indication we showed in the curation audit as a one command. So if I'm doing JFrog npm install, I will get the npm installed. And if something goes wrong, I will be able to get all the results of the curation audit and all of that in one command. So that's something that we can that we will integrate. We don't intend to change to provide versions of the package managers as is to support curation or anything like it, like to fork it or something like that. This is not something that we plan on doing.
Okay. We've got 10 questions in 5 minutes. Okay. How are developers informed once the upgrade available? I don't know. I'm assuming, is that a package upgrade? I'm not really sure what that means.
Yeah, I believe the question is if there is no upgrade available at the moment and I am being blocked, will I get a notification for that? Currently, no, we don't support that, but that's a great idea. And I'm adding this to my Jira as something that we will be able to notify because the platform is getting those updates.
Excellent. Is curation exposed via an API? We have automated processes for managing exceptions. Could the addition of a waiver be added programmatically?
So it will be the waiver management module extension we are working on right now. includes API for waiver request and API to waiver approval from external system like ServiceNow. So you will be able to ask for a waiver and to approve a waiver through an API. All of that will be based on APIs.
Excellent. Chris asks, is this another SKU on top of Artifactory and the X-ray license? Yes, it is. If you have an enterprise level license subscription, you can add curation on top of that, and you can find details on the pricing page, or if you are an existing customer, you can maybe get in touch with your account manager directly. Next one is Gail. What release of Artifactory includes curation? So the most recent release of the JFrog platform includes curation, as long as you have a license to entitlement to it, because you pay, you've got the add-on subscription, you can have access to curation today. Next question. Will an organization be allowed to write own custom policies? I think we've covered the custom policies. For example, automated code review tooling, which would be based, for example, on some automated code review tooling. I'm not sure what that means.
So it might be like a policy as code request, whether we will allow policies to be written as code. We are looking into that.
Okay.
There are some extreme measures we need to take in terms of performance, again, to ensure all of that could happen in milliseconds, and that makes it a challenge. So we're looking into that. No decision so far. We will update.
Next question. We've got 6 left. Let's see if we can get through these in 3 minutes. Is there a free trial of curation available as part of the current SaaS on AWS and GCP? There is a trial. The way that you can do this is you can request a trial from the website. This will go through your account manager if you're a salesperson, if you're already a customer, and it will go through our community engagement team if you're a new customer, and we will have someone do you a live demo and show you how to do it in person. So you can get a feel for it, whether you're a new customer or an existing customer. Daniel, along with false positives, what about CVEs in dispute?
So CVEs in dispute, you can decide if you want to either block specific or you are allowed those in, knowing that there is a potential that it will be changed. And then once it's changed, X-ray can be the one getting a more flexible decision if this is the case and this is what you wish to do. Okay. Also, you can take a look on JFrog severity that is kind of trying to resolve that in some cases.
Okay. Daniel's got a great question. Is there a plan to assure or so you're assured that the artifact files themselves are the correct hash or signature for the metadata claimed for it? While the metadata is okay, what if I'm getting tampered files?
Yes, so definitely yes. We are doing this when we are cataloging and scanning, pre-scanning. We are keeping the hashes, and this is how we make sure that the file that you are getting from the remote that is trusted and curated are the correct files, not based only on metadata.
Okay. 3 questions, 1 minute. Can I manage curation from API instead of the UI?
You will be able to do that at some point, policy-wise, waiver earlier.
Okay. Another question from Mitesh. Can we send the audit data to Splunk or another tool?
Definitely. We are at the end of adding those APIs, export to CVSS, and then from there, you can send those to Splunk, to CES, or whatever, CEF, or whatever is the standard. Okay,
and final question. Do curation policies for security and license blocks also affect X-ray, or do we need to assign licenses and secure policies in 2 places? I think we kind of answered that, which is today you need it in 2 places, but we're looking at how the 2 can be aware of each other. But yeah, you would have to have the policies in X-ray and the policies in curation. Okay. No, carry on.
Yeah, for a good reason, because you still want to put X-ray securing the promotion, securing the bills in case something changes and all of that. So you will always need to put the policies across the lifecycle stages, but the language will be unified. We are working on making sure same policies would be able to be implemented in both at the same language.
Okay, I'm just looking in the chat, and I think all the questions that were in there, there were some notifications about the audio. I think we've covered all of the questions that are inside the chat as well. So it's 1 minute after 11. I thank everybody for joining. It was an excellent session, lots of great questions. I think this is the most questions that I've ever seen on a webinar. So I guess the product's very interesting to you, and we thank you very much for joining us. Please feel free to go to jfrog.com/curation to find out some more. You can get lots of great resources. There's a launch blog. Great, just go there and find out more, and we look forward to seeing you at the next JFrog webinar.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.